Indian views on the savagery and uncivilized manner in which the 1947-48 Kashmir War was waged. This photograph on my blog post, also reproduced in my book on the Kashmir War, showing Indian prisoners at Atak Fort. These included the indomitable defenders of Skardu, Colonel Sher Jung Thapa. In this photograph, behind is the river Indus flowing, and these prisoners, Indian prisoners kept in the Atak Fort, are standing on the roof of the Atak Fort for a group photograph, a memory. They were kept prisoners in the Atak Fort and were released about 1949. Now, despite all their tangible inferiority in numbers, the Dogras, led by Lieutenant Colonel Sher Jung Thapa, an extremely resolute commander and a very chivalrous human being as far as treatment of non-combatants was concerned, on 14th August surrendered the Skardu fort, 14th August 1948, when 200 of his garrison broke out towards Kargil, while Sher Jung Thapa, a Gorkha officer, with the remainder 250 of his troops, surrendered. Now, Sher Jung's chivalry and his fair treatment of non-combatants for ignorant people who are in majority in India and Pakistan. Here I want to for the information of the ignorant people, the vast majority. For them I want to tell them that this fact that Sher Jung Thapa was a chivalrous human being was acknowledged by the official history of the Pakistan Army, published in 1970, titled The Kashmir Campaign. This is for the ignorant people. Now, Sher Jung Thapa surrendered 14th August 1948, the Skardu fort, known as Kharfocho, and 200 of his garrison broke out towards Kargil, and Sher Jung with 250 soldiers surrendered. The Indians had made many attempts to relieve Skardu, but these were foiled by the scouts and volunteers, who of course were massively outnumbering the Indians. So nothing heroic on their part. Indian defeat was a foregone conclusion. Let's be very frank. So they defeated the various Indian relieving columns by laying some very unconventional and brilliant ambushes on the Skardu Kargil road, and Dras on the Kargil Skardu road was captured by the Gilgit Scouts on 6 June 1948. In June, the Scouts finally advanced towards the Zojila Pass, the gateway to Srinagar Valley, from the east. Zojila Pass, 11,578 feet, was captured by the Gilgit Scouts under the leadership of Lieutenant Shah Khan on 7 July 1948. The Gilgit Scouts also advanced towards Leh, about 160 miles east of Skardu in the Indus Valley, but could not capture it since their relative numerical inferiority, lack of adequate logistic support, and majority of non-Muslim population in the area made the success of their operation doubtful. In mid-July, the Scouts, without any regular army troops, had liberated the entire northern areas and had reached the administrative boundary of Srinagar district, holding an area stretching in the west from the outskirts of Bandipora, 40 miles north of Srinagar, holding Zojila Pass, 62 miles east of Srinagar, and at Nimu, few miles west of Leh. The scouts had achieved more than their actual potential warranted and could only be praised for doing what they did. It was not possible for the scouts to advance any further west or south of the line they were holding, which would have brought them into open territory where high mountains and steep cliffs and high altitude were no longer present to act as force multipliers and where the Indians could effectively employ their regular army supported by modern artillery, aircraft, armored car and tanks. Now, these are some of the comments on my blog post. One, Hasibullah stated, "Dear sir, I need details about Operation Venus. Thanks." I replied, "The Pakistani political leadership at last realized that an effort must be made to at least assume a more threatening posture, failing which the Indians, emboldened by their success at Poonch and Zojila, may attempt an offensive operation which may bring them yet closer to the Kashmir-Pakistan international border. It may be noted that the area south of Poonch is mostly below 5,000 feet and operations in this area are not severely restricted unlike the higher area in the north because of heavy snowfall. Keeping this fact in view, the Pakistani GHQ felt that an Indian advance towards Mirpur and Bhimber was likely unless the Pakistan army now at last assumed a more responsible and offensive posture. We will now deal with the famous Operation Venus, which was given the shape of a political controversy by two gentlemen, one an army officer and the other a civil servant. By November, the Pakistani political leadership at last realized that a more active military policy must be adopted in Kashmir. Finally, the civilian political leadership was moved from its state of supreme lethargy and indecision and gave the army its first responsible political directive. The Pakistani government therefore directed the CNC that subject only to the defense of West Pakistan frontiers with India, Pakistan army was to prevent at all costs the Indians from extending the area of their occupation in the Jammu and Kashmir state. This directive was issued in mid-November 1948, and following this the GHQ decided to move sizable forces for offensive action in the Bhimber sector in Kashmir. In addition, the Pakistani cabinet asked the CNC to examine in detail the military implications of the proposed counterstroke. Gracie proposed a counterstroke involving an armored brigade and infantry brigade originating from Bhimber area and directed at Beri Patan on the main Indian supply route from Akhnur to Nashara Rajodi and Pooch. The aim of the projected Operation Venus, as the counterstroke was codenamed, was not to recapture Kashmir or even to recapture Poonch, but in the words of the official history of the Kashmir War, to force the Indians to sue for an immediate ceasefire on the basis of the status quo, as their recent operations had involved the maximum effort they were capable of putting forth at that time. The maneuvers now contemplated would, instead of prolonging the fight in Kashmir, force the Indians to terminate the conflict. The plan was to attack Beri Patan Bridge with a infantry brigade and armored brigade and cut the Indian road link of Jammu with Poonch, the same as in Operation Grand Slam, but in this case Indian position was strong, whereas in Grand Slam Indian forces were very weak and Pakistanis had 6-1 superiority in tanks and artillery. You can find details in the GHQ History Kashmir campaign. So, now a question from an Indian reader. I routinely read your blog and it's an eye-opener. After having studied in US and now working here, I made numerous lifelong Pakistani friends. I sincerely hope and pray that these two nations sort out their issues and move on. Tough things to do due to vested interest of establishments on both sides and easy scapegoats to deflect attention from the real issues. Only way out is to let the common people interact and realize the futility of all this and use their goodwill for common interest. Enough said, the main reason I am posting here is that I saw my uncle's picture, I think so, as a POW captured in 1948 in Gilgit with 6 Kashmir rifles. He probably is the Sikh officer in the Atak Fort photo on the extreme right hand side with Lieutenant Colonel Thapa. His name was Captain Baldev Singh Bajwa, adjutant with Lieutenant Colonel Majid Khan. He was originally from Kotli Bajwa in Narowal. I did share this link with his son and will post his feedback on my uncle's experience as POW verbatim. Best, Gary Singh. Now, second post replying to my post is Sanjeet Bali, 17 September 2012. Hello Gary, my brother sent Indian prisoners at Atak Fort Skardu picture to us today, and it just got all of us siblings ruffled up. Our day hasn't been the same since this morning. The Sikh gentleman at the extreme right could be my grandfather too, or so we hope, and the comparison doesn't end there. His name was Thakur Singh Bali. My grandmother was probably still in her teens, and my father 3 years old when my grandfather set foot on his war journey. My grandfather Bapu was declared war dead or POW. We have spent most of our childhood dreaming of situations on how one day door will open and he will walk in, of how someday someone will bring us the news that he is still alive. What happened to him still remains a mystery, with not a single soul knowing what happened to him. The only last account we heard last was from one of his staff who was with him, being told to look for a route when they found themselves lost in snow. We met that gentleman about 15 to 20 years back, and he confessed that he did find the way but was too scared to risk his life by going back. His account is that he either died in the snow in Skardu or was a POW. To us, these accounts remain just stories. This family seeks a closure on him, and unfortunately, there is no one who can give a credible end to this. One, we have sought this for years. Only Vah Guruji or he knows what really happened. To be honest, I don't know why I am writing all this to you. Maybe in hope that someday someone would chance upon this and give us some information about him. If there is any possibility of your cousin being interested to get in touch and share some information, I would really appreciate. Your note does mention that your cousin is gravely ill. God bless, and I hope that he is recovering fast. Sanjeet Bali. Sorry about the goof up about the name. Somehow misread it. Apologies. My reply, thanks for the feedback, Gary. Now Gary's posts another reply. Brief background about my uncle's family. He was fourth generation officer serving for Kashmir State Army, son of Subadar Thakar Singh Bajwa. His grandfather's name was Lieutenant Colonel Ishwar Singh Bajwa and was veteran of World War I, Mesopotamia and Afghan wars. My maternal grandfather was Sardar Gurbachan Singh Bajwa, a lawyer in Sialkot and Narwal, and a two-term member of Legislative Assembly from Sikh rural seat of the same district. Captain Baldev Singh was nephew of Gurbachan Singh. His elder brother's son, Lieutenant Colonel Ishwar Singh, was a very straightforward, upright and God-fearing, pious person, a trait that runs through the family. Bajwa family after partition settled in Qadian and Sirsa. Lieutenant Colonel Bajwa settled here. Lieutenant Colonel Ishwar Singh Bajwa was instrumental in getting mosque built at the Bunji cantonment, a deed that was one of the reasons my uncle was spared, and also amazing assistance provided by few of his Muslim Jawans and Maulvi. Summarized below is what I was told by my cousin, the late surviving son of my late uncle, Lieutenant Colonel Baldev Singh Bajwa. My cousin resides in the US and is gravely ill. Hopefully, when he recovers, I could get some more details. I can't attest to these facts, therefore posting as verbatim. Lieutenant Colonel Majid Khan, the commanding officer, was very close to my uncle, his adjutant, but always appointed a Muslim officer as quartermaster. This reportedly was detrimental to Dogra and Sikh troops' plight. My uncle was very critical of Khan's action, who, as per him, was complicit in later events. All of the non-Muslim troops had no service weapons when they broke out except their personal weapons. They couldn't have fought back. These folks could hide during the day and move around at night. They couldn't go to the water sources, streams, etc., since they were guarded by troops and snipers. To quench thirst, they would lick moisture of trees, stones, and were living off tree barks, etc. Once they made a rope out of turbans so that a Jawan could climb down to bring up 2 canvas buckets of snow to suck on. Once they did manage to capture a goat and cooked it on fire, but everyone got sick after eating it. Things were so hopeless that a close family friend could not bear thirst anymore, and in spite of my uncle's dire warnings, made a dash for the stream and was fatally shot. Out of despair, few of the officers and Jawans committed suicide with their weapons. Finally, they all surrendered, and pressure was for conversion with executions. Everyone had made the decision not to get converted. Prisoners informed their captors that if senior officer Captain Baldev Singh converted, they would all follow. My uncle was reportedly pressed upon, "You eat halal with us in the mess, so what's the issue? Or we will forcibly shone your hair." He reminded them as a friend and colleague. He would share their food or the fact that religion is in one's heart and they would need to kill him first. He was then subjected to daily mock execution drill to break him down. In these dark days and times, few of his Jawans played a big role in keeping his morale up. One was Paltan Maulvi, who somehow secured a Sikh prayer book and gave it to my uncle, which bugged up his spirits. This Maulvi also reminded everyone that local mosque was built by this officer's grandfather. There were 2 Jawans who assured my uncle that they would die first protecting him. They ensured that one of them was always on guard duty around. One of the Jawan's name was Nazir Hussain. Unit Taylor gave rupees 100 to my uncle against his protests and told him it's not a loan. Eventually, the POWs were transferred to the Attak fort. Years later, I met a civilian Kashmiri Sikh who was also interned at Attak and remembered Captain Bajwa. Now, this is the Kharfocho fort, as you can see, and this was defended by the indomitable Sher Jang Thapa, much praised in the Pakistani official history, titled the Kashmir Campaign, published by the Pakistan Army General Headquarters in 1970, as the most chivalrous human being who was exemplary in his treatment of non-combatants. Sadly, when my father was posted as brigade commander in the northern areas and commanding the whole area from Havelia in the south to Khunjrab in the north and Skardu in the east, I interviewed a large number of locals, especially Noor Bakshis, who were part of the siege of Skardu, and they narrated that the Chitral contingent besieging Skardu was most notorious in all kinds of human rights violations, and this character Khushwaktur Mulk or somebody like that wanted to kill the brave Sher Jang Thapa, but this Chitral character from the royal family, I don't know what kind of upstarts they were, he was snubbed by the Pakistan Army Commander-in-Chief General Gracie, who had served with the Gurkhas and who knew Sher Jang Thapa very well, to stay in his low place and never to think about killing Sher Jang Thapa. So here I end this account. It may be of interest to somebody. Now, with so much time having passed, maybe it is of no importance, but still I am sharing it here so that someone who may be interested may read it and find some salvation in it. And as you will note, they were good human beings on both sides, and that is why I think this world is going on. Humanity in some places, in some direction, has always praised this. As you can see, this is my bio note in the Staff College Citadel Journal, where my article was published in 1994. As you can see, this is the bio note. This is the National Defence College acknowledging my book. General Maqbool, a very courteous person. Otherwise, most of the commandants were very, very shallow people. I sent them various books, but no acknowledgement, no courtesy. One of them I had billed also for the misuse of his staff car and jeep when he was my brigade commander. So maybe he remembered that thing. Yeah? It's quite possible. This is my book in the US Army Command and Staff College Fort Leavenworth Library. This is my book in the US Army War College Carlisle Library, as you can see. And this is a very valuable email I received from my mentor Ed Lutwerk, in which he says, "Thank you for your thoughts, first class strategic thoughts, even when I happen to disagree." This is the back cover of my book, The Taliban Factions in Afghanistan, published by Edwin Mellen Press in 2010. This is a letter I received from the US Army Center of Military History inviting me in 2007 to deliver a lecture on the US-Afghan War. This is an acknowledgement of my book from the Commandant, West Point Military Academy, for donating a book on leadership, and Karl von Clausewitz to the West Point Military Academy. This is another acknowledgement from the Center of Study of Intelligence Operations of the CIA, for donating my book, The Essential Clausewitz, to the library. This is an acknowledgement from General Musharraf while he was commanding 40 Division, acknowledging my book, The Essential Clausewitz. His father was cipher clerk with my aunt's husband, and we used to play squash and okada, but later on we became sworn enemies, but that is another story. As you can see, this is letter of recommendation from the SNC Lavalin, world's 5th largest consulting company and Canada's largest, for carrying out the CASA 1000 transmission line survey. This is my merit certificate of the mid-career course of the Armor School, Nashera. I was going to be first, but somehow the commandant was very hostile, and there were 2 lieutenant colonels also playing some dirty games, so I landed in second position. Anyhow, it hardly matters.